everyone, and welcome back to the Bundesliga Show, brought to you by Over the Bar. And it's the video you've all been waiting for, one of our many pre-season videos that we've been doing. It's the big prediction show. So me and Mark did a similar one to this at the start of last season, but to a lesser extent. We did a few relegation, who we might think is going to come top four and stuff. But full accountability this season. We're going from 18 to 1. Full on predictions, so you'll be able to see exactly what me and Mark are thinking ahead of the new season. Very exciting and very unpredictable, I think, this season could well be. I think the predictions could be really hard, so I think me and Mark are prepared to look very, very silly.
Always.
But before we get into it, of course, this video is brought to you in association with and in partnership with Bundesliga Boxes. So obviously they're a fantastic company that source mystery, authentic German t-shirts, amongst many other things that come in the boxes. And sometimes you get scarves and lots of other nice things, pin badges, match programs, everything. So if you haven't already got onto it, get them on Twitter, just search Bundesliga Boxes, and you'll find their new website as well that they've been working on. And I think batch 12 is in the works as well. So keep an eye out for that. You can see that I'm sporting my first one, which is Arminia Berlin, which I actually really like. It's fresh t-shirt, very comfortable. I do have a name on the back as well. So that's fantastic value for what you get. So the guys at Bundesliga Boxes are doing a fine job, and they're in partnership with us this season. So hopefully we'll be bringing some more fruity numbers to the videos. Mark, what top have you got on?
Yeah, I'm sporting my SC Paderborn 07 shirt, as you can see there, which is quite ironic, actually, because as some of you may remember, I am an FC Nuremberg fan, and Paderborn play Nuremberg on Friday. Yeah, so I guess it was always meant to be with that one, really, But yeah, it's a really, really nice shirt, kind of got a bit of a Galatasaray look going on there. But yeah, I mean, it's also another great thing about Bundesliga Boxes is surprise as well. So you don't know exactly what you're going to get. And I was really happy with this Paderborn. And actually one of my neighbors as well is from Paderborn here in Germany. So he was quite interested to see it. I think he thought I was crazy when I was wearing a Paderborn shirt, but that's part of the surprise. So yeah, get buying your Bundesliga Boxes, guys. Yeah.
All right. Good stuff. So we're going to go into our predictions in a minute. So, but before we do, Mark will kind of go over the format of how we're going to do it. Before you do, obviously, if you're new to the channel or you're new to the predictions video, by all means, kind of click on, put in the comments if you agree or disagree with some of mine or Mark's comments, and please do submit your predictions as well, whether it's on Twitter or in the comments on YouTube. Please do get involved, because we've got a great community already looking to expand that. So yeah, please do get involved. So yeah, Mark, over to you to explain to the viewers how we're going to go about today's predictions.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So obviously, I think everyone wants to know what we, the experts, so to speak, think about our 1 to 18 for this season, the 2021 to 22 season. So the way we're going to go through this, we're going to split it into 4 different sections of the table. So first of all, we're going to start off with the bottom 3, mine and Rory's bottom 3. We're going to go one by one and show you how we've decided there. Then we're going to look at the rest of the bottom half of the table, which of course will be 15th to 10th place. Then we're going to take you through the bottom half of the top half, which is from 9th to 5th. And then we're going to slowly count down the big 4 from 4 to 1 and see who's going to end up our champions this year, or our predicted champions, and obviously the Champions League places as well. So without further ado, I mean, we can get started with Rory's bottom. We're going to start bottom to top just to make it a bit more exciting for you guys as well. So yeah, over to Rory. He's going to talk you through his bottom 3. So
yeah, indeed. So just before I reveal my 18th place, please bear in mind that this is a pre-recorded video, so we're not live. So we're doing this a little bit out of the season. So transfers may well kind of happen after this, this video is recorded. So it might make us change our minds in due course. And we're not going to go into loads of detail. We'll kind of give a brief explanation into each kind of, choice, so like 30-second segment, really. No detailed analysis. But anyway, so they're the rules and the stipulations. I'll crack on with my 18th place pick. And it's one of the newly promoted teams. It will be Furth in 18th place for me. So yeah, I reckon the team that came up in dramatic fashion last season from the Spy Bundesliga, I think they'll struggle this season based on some kind of idea of the transfer activity that's happened so far. Quite a lot of the teams at the bottom of the Bundesliga last season have looked like they've strengthened, and Fürth have obviously got a squad that was capable in the Spy Bundesliga, but are relatively untested. They've got some good players and players who've got a bit of experience. For example, you've got Julian Green. He's an ex-Bayern Munich man who kind of was one of their big players last season. But generally speaking, I think Furth are really going to struggle this year. They've done fantastic to even give themselves a shot of the Bundesliga. So I think it'll be a case of straight up, but straight back down again for Furth this season. So they're my 18th place pick. Moving on to 17th place. And I always worry about picking this team low down because they always kind of make me look silly. But I'm doing it anyway. But again, based on the fact that I think they look a little bit thin in terms of their squad. Their form was questionable towards the end of last season. They did enough to stay up. But I think this time they may well be in big trouble. And so 17th place for me is FC Augsburg. Many fans will probably question that, especially the ones from Augsburg. They do a fine job staying up in the Bundesliga a lot of the time. But I think this time they could struggle. It's hard to predict because there are some sides that look, slightly weaker this season, but I reckon Augsburg might be ones to go down automatically. So I'll move on to 16th place. So this will be the relegation playoff place. So I'm going to choose Bochum, who obviously came up as champions. I think they look like they've got a bit more experience in their side, a bit more know-how. I think they've made some okay-looking signings as well already so far this transfer window. I think they might surprise a few teams, not to the extent that, say, Stuttgart did last season, but obviously Stuttgart have got a bit more of a history and probably had a squad capable of doing well in the Bundesliga. So it won't be something like that, but I expect them to do better than Fürth will do. And if they can aim for a 16th place or higher, obviously that would be dreamland for them. A well-established club in Germany, and I think if they do finish 16th, I think they will win their 16th, their relegation playoff match. I'm going to call it and say they'll win that. So that's my 18 to 16. So Mark, over to you.
Yeah, so my picks are actually my 18th spot is exactly the same as Rory's. I just think Greuther Fürth is going to be really, really hard for me to have a chance of fighting in the Bundesliga. I think obviously last year we saw Bielefeld famously staying up after coming up in probably similar circumstances to Greuther Fürth. Nobody thought they had a chance, but obviously they did manage to retain their Bundesliga status for this season. But I think, obviously, they do have a few good young players actually there at Fürth. Like a couple of their players are actually representing Germany in the Olympics at the moment. So they do have some quality, particularly in midfield. If you look at some of the signings, they haven't spent a single penny actually so far. They're not exactly the richest club. Actually, rivals of Nuremberg as well. They signed Max Christiansen on a free from Waldhof Mannheim and Nils Seufert from Bielefeld, actually. They're probably the two biggest name signs, which doesn't really say much, to be honest, does it? I don't think many of you guys are going to know too much about those guys, but you never know. The Bundesliga is a league that's famous for teams kind of coming from nowhere and doing better than what you expect. So who knows, maybe Fürth will do better than what me and Rory both predict. But as a Nuremberg fan as well, considering they are big rivals with Greuther Fürth, I have to say they're going to finish 18th anyway, Okay, and moving on to my 17th place. Actually, I've agreed with Rory as well on this one. I mean, some people might be a little bit surprised to see the fact that I have gone for Augsburg in 17th as well, because usually I'm someone who kind of tips up Augsburg quite a lot. I mean, I like them as a club. It's a small club, but this is going to be the 9th straight season in the Bundesliga, which is a great achievement as well. But I agree with Rory on the fact that they really, really struggled towards the end of last season, didn't they? I mean, they finished very poorly, and I think they needed that win over Werder Bremen within the second to last game. If they'd have lost that one, we could very easily be seeing them in the Zweite Bundesliga instead of Werder. But on the flip side, they have made one big money signing actually this year. They've signed Niklas Dorsch from Ghent in Belgium for 8 million euros actually, which is quite a lot for a club of the size of Augsburg, a defensive midfielder. So maybe he could add a bit of kind of steel to them. But for me, what Augsburg are lacking is a bit of flair at times, so I'm not sure whether a defensive midfielder is really what they needed. I think they need a bit more quality up top, and I think perhaps they could struggle this year, and they are my pick for 17th. Then moving on to 16th, I've actually gone for the same side that finished in 16th last year as well, which is FC Köln. I just think, with regard to Köln, I just think obviously they were very lucky to stay up last season. By the way, losing the home leg of the playoff against Holstein Kiel, but eventually, obviously, they did manage to get that famous 5-1 win away from home, which saved the bacon, so to speak. That was a really good performance, to be fair. But I just think the fact that they have lost a few key players as well. Obviously, Marius Wolf has gone back to Dortmund. He was only on loan last season. I thought he was one of their key players last year. They've also lost Emmanuel Dennis, who was also on loan. He was probably one of their key players. Probably the biggest name signing they've made is actually Mark Uth. And let's be honest, he was absolutely dreadful for Schalke last year, wasn't he? I mean, the Schalke fans just wanted him out the door, So, I mean, it doesn't really say a lot that he's been their biggest signing. So, obviously they also signed Dejan Ljubicic from Rapid Vienna, on a free transfer. Again, it doesn't really give you a lot of hope for their ambition. I just think it's going to be another long season for them, and they're going to get 16th spot this year for me.
Good stuff. All right, so we'll quickly go from 15th to 10th, I think we said, didn't we? So on to mid-table. I'll try and go through this in less detail. So 15th place for me, I think. Just escaping the playoff place would be Arminia Bielefeld. I think they did a fantastic job last year of course, avoiding the drop. They picked up crucial points at crucial times. They made a managerial switch, and at the time, me and Mark, but we both thought it was a bit harsh, didn't we? And it ended up being a really smart appointment. I actually like the business that Bielefeld have done so far this season. The signing of Yanni Serra, I think, is a really good one. Obviously, he was banging in the goals for Holstein Kiel, who almost got promoted famously last season, who FC Köln played in the playoff match. I think he hit the bar in one of the games as well, actually, with a bullet header. So that I think that'll take a lot of pressure off Fabian Klos, who's obviously their talisman, but struggled in front of goal. That's especially important given the fact that Rizzo Doan has gone back to his parent club. I think that's PSV, isn't it? Yeah. They haven't got the money to sign him, unfortunately. Another key aspect, the fact that Stefan Altega is still at the club. Bayern Munich obviously turned down the opportunity to sign him as a reserve goalkeeper for, I can't remember exactly what the figures were toted, but I'm quite surprised that Bayern didn't go for that. But there's lots of people saying that the economics just didn't add up for a reserve keeper to spend that much money. So that's a good thing for I think for Bielefeld. So I think they'll stay put in the Bundesliga, but still be near enough to the drop. So going up one place, FC Köln for me, I think they'll have a better season than they did last season, but still struggle ultimately. I think obviously one major bit of business that is a negative for them is losing Sebastian Bornau. He's gone up to Wolfsburg, so that's obviously a negative. You've got Anthony Modeste and, like you said, Mark Uth coming back in, so maybe they can get a few more goals in that area. Obviously, they did struggle, and like you said, I think they are lacking that kind of exciting attacking brand of football that we saw them try to play. If they try and be more positive, I think they'll get some more results. But ultimately, I think they'll have a bit more of a better season, but not much to shout about. Moving on to 13th, I think it will be Hertha Berlin. They obviously came off a very scary moment for them in the fact that it looked like at one point they were destined for the drop after all the money that's been invested into the club. But the manager, the head coach, Sebastian Dardai, managed to gather momentum and obviously gain enough points to get them out of the drop and finish in a respectable position in the end. But it's not what they would have hoped for. But I still think lower mid-table is going to be the position for them. They've made some interesting signings. Obviously, the Prince is returning, so Kevin Prince Boateng back to the club. Today, as we record, they've just signed Jovetic. So that's a very interesting one. Of course, could be a really good signing, or depending on injuries. And then, Davy Selke from Furth has been scoring some goals in pre-season, so who knows? Maybe he'll pick up as well. But ultimately, I think they'll still be an inconsistent beast. So 13th place for me. I don't expect them to be as troubled in terms of relegation season. 12th place next up for me. Probably a surprise one, but I'm going to go with Freiburg. I think that they constantly overachieve as they did last season. They've got a superb team ethic. They play some really good football, apart from little spells where they kind of go into their shell, and they went on a bit of a bad run in the early to second part of last season, then picked up towards the end. Kind of sometimes reliant on their Italian playmaker, Vicente Grifo. He's obviously a class outfit, so he'll be important for them. I haven't seen too much business from Freiburg so far, unless I've missed it. So that's another thing that's kind of making me think they might struggle again. So yeah, that's my 12th place pick. Moving on to 11th, I will go for Mainz. I think they will continue to ride the momentum that they gained from last season. Really were playing some superb football. They got forward in numbers. Some really exciting young forwards working off the back of good hold-up play ultimately at the top end of the pitch. Again, they've not made loads of signings, but one that springs to mind is Lee, again from Holstein Kiel. So they've been cherry-picked a little bit, unfortunately. Kiel, he looks like a player capable of playing in the Bundesliga. So I'm excited to see what he can do in that Mainz team, because he will run all day for them. So if they can get ball back from him, I think they'll do really well. So that's my 11th place. And then 10th place for me will be Hoffenheim. Expecting a lot better from Hoffenheim this season. And for some reason, I don't even know why, because they haven't actually done loads of business. Obviously, Ryan Sessegnon has gone back to Spurs. Not that he was exactly a key player for them. Obviously, holding on to Kramaric is an important one. Sebastian Rudy will be staying at the club now that his loan deal with Stuttgart has been made permanent. So he's a good player in there for them now. But I just think they've got so much quality and talent in there, which they're not making the most of, and some players that shone in the Euros as well. So I think it was Grilic, or the Austrian player. He looked like a fine player in the Euros, so there's no reason why that can't continue. So without Europe as well, I think they'll look a bit more comfortable in the league. So around about 10th place, I'm going to go for. So over to you, Mark. Do you want to spin through? So 15th place for you to start with.
Yeah, so in 15th, I've actually gone for Bochum, like one place above what Rory tipped for them. Yeah, I just think they looked a really, really good side in the Zweite Bundesliga last year. I was really, really impressed with them. Obviously, the guys over at the Zweite Bundesliga podcast also said they were by streets better than everyone else in the Zweite last year. So I do think they should have enough. I think, obviously, we could even see them be the surprise package of the year, I think, because they have a couple of really good midfielders. And also they've made a couple of decent signings as well. I think Christopher Antwi from Paderborn is a highly rated defensive midfielder as well. I think he could add a little bit of steel to them. And I just think there's going to be enough quality in there to believe that they can beat the drop. I never tend to predict that teams that come up are going to do that well, because obviously it's a massive step up from the Zweite to the Erste Bundesliga. But I just think they're going to have enough quality to stay up for me and potentially even finish a couple of places higher as well, I would say. So yeah, moving on to my 14th, I've also gone for Arminia Bielefeld. I just think I see no reason why they can't do a little bit better and have a slightly more comfortable season this year than what they did last year. I think the board, despite obviously losing Ritsu Doan, which is a massive, massive blow to them because he was, like, let's be honest, after Ortega, he was by far their best player, best outfield player last season. Nobody can really deny that. But I mean, they have made a few signings, none of which I can really profess to knowing that much about, to be honest, because most of them are from like the likes of Guillermo Ramos from Firenze in Portugal. They've also brought in Brian Lasma, a forward from Sochaux in France. France can often produce some of these good players, and they've actually bought 4 players for over €1 million, which might not sound that big by Premier League standards, but for a side like Bielefeld, that's a really big deal. They've spent around €5-6 million this summer, which is really big money for a club like them, particularly in pandemic times. And I think they can cover the loss of Doan. And obviously, as you said, Rory, keeping Ortega is massive because I think he made pretty much everyone's goalkeeper of the year apart from the official Bundesliga site, to be honest with you, didn't he? But yeah, quality goalkeeper, great character as well. And I think he's going to lead them well. They've got a solid defence, and I think they will have enough to finish in lower mid-table. Moving on to 13th, I've actually gone for Stuttgart. Yeah, I think they could be the team that drop a little bit, actually, Stuttgart. I think they probably didn't have the second half of the season they would have hoped after an amazing first half of the season. Let's be honest. I mean, me and Rory were waxing lyrical about them, weren't we, for probably until just after Christmas, when they did have a little bit of a dip. I think, obviously, key departures with Nicolas Gonzalez. Many people would say he can be covered because, obviously, they did. Kalajic was far more of a kind of centerpiece striker for them in the second half of the season. But for me, they looked at the best when Gonzalez was leading that number 9, really. I think they looked a more fluid side. I think, obviously, the other key departure was Gregor Kobel, the Swiss goalkeeper, who's now going to be Dortmund's number 1. But I think aside from that, they haven't lost anyone else as of yet. They have made a few signings as well. They got Florian Müller, obviously, as the replacement goalkeeper from Mainz. He looks quite an astute signing. They brought Chris Furth in from Paderborn. Seems as though a lot of Paderborn players from last year are going to be playing in the Bundesliga as well. Maybe this shirt was the inspiration,
Right.
But yeah, I just think that Stuttgart, I think they'll still be comfortable, but I do think that they've lost 2 very, very key players there, let's be honest. They still have quality in the side. Borna Souza, obviously Silas as well. There's plenty of quality in there, but I just think they might finish a bit lower this year, to Rory's dismay, of course. Yeah, up to 12th, I've gone for Freiburg. I just think Freiburg, again, they've not really made any signs, but at the same time, there's been no kind of major key departures either. So I don't see any reason why they're going to finish any lower than 12th, to be honest with you. Potentially, they could finish as high as 9th or 10th again, where they've been for the last 2 seasons. Moving on to 11th, I've gone for Hertha Berlin. I mean, last year, I think I tipped them to get 5th, but obviously it was a disaster of a season. This year, I expect it not to be as well as what their fans might be hoping. But I mean, they have made a few decent signings, but again, they seem to go for these, like, what I would call luxury signings, really, Hertha Berlin these days. I think Hertha would be better off just bringing in some kind of more solid players. They brought in Suat Serdar, who was their big sign from Schalke. I mean, obviously, he was expected to be a world beater by now. He's always been a player that's been really, really highly rated, but he's never really done it for me. And he's also got issues with behavioural problems as well, from what I can gather. He's quite a marquee signing, some would say, considering how highly he was rated a few years ago. But again, is he the kind of character you want at a club that lacked mentality last year? I don't know, to be honest. They also sold John Cordoba for €20 million, actually. actually, to FK Krasnodar in Russia. I was a little bit surprised. I mean, Krasnodar must be drunk spending 20 million euros on him, to be honest. But maybe in the Russian league, he might do better, you know. But obviously, they've got a really good deal there. So let's be honest, 20 million for him after a very, very poor season last year. Yeah, moving on to my 10th place, it's moving across the city to Union Berlin. I just think some people might be surprised that I've got them in the bottom half, albeit at the top of the bottom half. But I just think the European adventure, I think Union will take that really, really seriously this year, to be honest. And I think that's a really, really big thing for them. Obviously, they're playing in this Conference League 2 or whatever they call it. It's not the most glamorous tournament ever known to man, but at the end of the day, it's European football in East Germany. It's a big deal, you know. And also on top of that, they've really, really bulked up the squad a lot as well. I mean, I was really surprised to see the number of players they brought in, to be honest with you. I mean, some of the players maybe aren't the most glamorous you're ever going to see in your life, but I mean, they brought in some quality as well. So I just think that they've got enough in them to finish in 10th and also probably have a good run in the Conference League as well. So yeah, that's my bottom half finished.
Good stuff. So I will quickly move through 9th to 5th, and then we'll obviously go through the top 4. So in 9th place, I'm going for an increase of 1 for Union Berlin. I think they will drop a little bit because of their adventures that they might have in Europe in the Conference League. However, I don't expect a huge drop because I think they've done some fantastic business in the transfer window. As Mark mentioned, not any of them super stellar signings. I think they broke their transfer record very early on for a left back. So he obviously should fit into their system. Andreas Volksammer from Bielefeld, that's a bit of a blow for Bielefeld. He's already looked really sharp in pre-season for Union. So that's an impressive signing. Caterendo made his loan deal a permanent deal, and Wany's done the same from Liverpool. His loan deal is now a permanent deal. He's just a beast of a player. I didn't realise how tall he was. So with all that adding up, I think Union could be in for another fantastic season. No danger in terms of dropping too far down the league, and who knows how far they might go in the Conference League. So moving on next to 8th place, and a very respectful finish for my darlings, Stuttgart. I am a bit worried about the loss of the two kind of major players in the shape of Nico Gonzalez and Gregor Kobel. Kobel, I think, didn't get as much credit last season as they deserved because he was behind a bit of not a leaky defence, but a defence that didn't necessarily always think defending was always that key. Because Stuttgart were always let's score goals kind of mentality, but on the counter press as well. So that's obviously a concern. They've now kind of levelled out economically by the looks of it. So as far as they're concerned, they don't need to sell any more players. So the likes of Kalajdzic, Souza, Silas, Mangala, players like that, they should all still be at the club. One slight worry is the amount of injuries that Stuttgart still have. I think Mangala is still going to be out for a while. Silas obviously had a serious injury. I think one of their youngsters got injured in pre-season. One of their promising youngsters got injured in pre-season. So if a few players drop, that's what gets me worried. If you lose Kalajdzic, if you lose Souza, obviously Endo's a very important player in the middle of the park as well. And they've made some okay signings. Amada from Juve is now a permanent signing, making his loan deal. And then, as Mark mentioned, Muller from Mainz makes sense in goal as well. So 8th place finish for Stuttgart. I think they'll continue their fine work in the Bundesliga. Moving on to 7th, and now what is famously known as the Europa Conference League spot. I'm going to go for Eintracht Frankfurt. I think that the very obvious move of losing Andre Silva to RB Leipzig is ginormous for them. Obviously, Luka Jovic is now back at his parent club in the shape of Real Madrid. At the moment, as we're filming, they haven't gone in for Jovic because, of course, they've already made, in theory, a replacement signing in the shape of Rafael Borre I think he was on a free actually. But either way around, he looks like a really good player, but it just depends on how he settles for me. So I think, they might struggle a little bit. Obviously, new coach as well. So it's all about kind of getting your feet under the table. But they still got a really exciting team with Kostic and Kamada and players like that. It's obviously just that key point of getting goals all the time. And if Boré doesn't settle in, where will those goals necessarily come from? But still in shape to have a very good season. Who knows, they might go far in a cup competition as well. And then 5th and 6th for me are really a toss-up. It could be either or. I've gone for 6th place for Bayer Leverkusen. Be interesting to see how the new coach, Gerard Seoane, will settle into the Bundesliga. So he's one of the coaches who isn't kind of doing merry-go-round. He's coming in directly from another league. No shock to see that Leverkusen are doing a bit of business from the Swiss league. But obviously, Leverkusen have been linked with the fact that they might lose Leon Bailey to Aston Villa, I'm hearing, quite recently. That would be a big blow. Demarai Gray's brief stint in Germany is over, as he is now returned and gone to Everton. So good luck to him. But that didn't really work, unfortunately. Lots of chatter, of course, about the Patrick Schick situation, but he's under contract for another 3 years, I think, at least. So that protects his value. I can't imagine anyone will actually come in for him. So if he can kick on his form, then they could well go further than 6th. And they've got Alario as well to kind of put in the mix with their exciting talent, such as Furth and Diaby going forward as well. So 6th place for Leverkusen for me. And then 5th place, just outside the top 4, I'm going for Borussia Mönchengladbach, which again could go either way. New head coach, and obviously in the form of Adi Hütter, who did such a fine job at Frankfurt. So they've got no issues with regards to the head coach. In terms of their transfer business so far, I mean, they've obviously not lost anyone major. Lazzaro's gone back to Inter Milan, but he didn't, other than his scorpion kick goal, he didn't really do anything, did he? So for me, the fact that they've kept the base of this incredibly talented team together is enough. So if they can get a coach with a bit of a project under their belt, I think they'll do quite well. So 5th place, Gladbach for me. So Mark, you are going to take us from 9th to 5th as well.
Yeah, so in 9th place, I've actually gone for Mainz. I mean, some people might be a little bit surprised about that one because obviously they struggled for long parts of last season. But I just thought in the second half of last season, their form was like, I think they were like 7th or 8th in the table after Bo Svensson obviously famously took over. He was the 3rd permanent head coach of the season. He just did amazingly well, didn't he? I mean, obviously, this is a side. I think there is quality in there. You know, I think the key for them is the fact they haven't, other than obviously Florian Müller, who went to Stuttgart, they haven't lost any really key players. Obviously, they did lose Quaison, but to be honest, he wasn't that key last season anyway. He's gone to play football, probably chasing the money over in Saudi Arabia now. But I don't think he was that key anyway for them. I think most of the real quality players from last season they have kept. So I think that's important. They've signed, the only real player of note that they've signed is Sylvain Widmar from Basel for €2.5 million, which seems to be, I mean, I can't profess to knowing that much about him, but he looks to be a decent player. So a defensive midfielder there, which might kind of stabilize them a little bit. Sorry. But yeah, they've still got quality like Jerry Saint-Just in the defence, who was brilliant in the second half of last season. I think obviously Dortmund are heavily courting him, so maybe by the time the season comes, he could potentially be a Dortmund player, and I don't think it'd be a bad signing at all for them. Other quality players as well in there, so I think there's enough quality there to make me believe that they can finish in 9th place. So yeah, so moving on to 8th, I've gone for Hoffenheim, yeah. So I just think basically Hoffenheim massively underachieved for most of last season. I still think they've got a quality side, really. As you say, they kept Kramaric, which was really important. I had a feeling that he could potentially move to a bigger club, maybe to the likes of Frankfurt. But it seems as though Frankfurt just don't have the financial basis to go out and sign these kind of players, unfortunately for them. I think, Grilic, I agree with Rory. I thought he was brilliant in the Euros, actually. He was kind of one of my unsung heroes of the Euros, really, Grilic. I mean, they've got to be looking massively at him and saying, like, where was that form last season? Because for Hoffenheim, he was bang average for long periods. No kind of major transfer dealings, but I think, there's enough to believe that they can go back to their kind of usual territory in kind of upper mid-table to pushing for European places, really, Hoffenheim. So moving on to seventh, I've gone the same as Rory for this one. I've gone for Frankfurt. I just think, obviously, the fact that the form, like, they're going to be coming into the season gutted, really. And obviously the fact they do have Europa League football to play as well. So Thursday and Sundays this year for them. We saw what happened last season with obviously Hoffenheim and to an extent Leverkusen as well. The German squads are not the most bulky in the world, and playing 2 games a week does sometimes affect the form and the quality of performances, particularly in the league. So I think, obviously, I think Frankfurt will get to the 7th spot next year. Yeah, I think obviously the fact that Frankfurt also have lost Andre Silva, I mean, that's a massive, massive blow to them. For only 25 million euros as well. I just couldn't believe it when I saw that. Only 25 million for a player of his quality. I mean, the guy was just a machine last year, wasn't he? Getting 29 league goals. And I mean, he just looks like he's born to play in the Bundesliga to me, really. And as of yet, there's been no kind of major replacement for him as well, which is somewhat surprising to me, really, because I think there's still a lot of potential in this Frankfurt side. I think they've got quality, especially, I mean, I think everyone knows I'm a massive fan of Kostic. I think I'm a little bit surprised no one's come in for him, really, as well. I think obviously the main signing has actually been Jesper Lindström from Brøndby. Obviously is an attacking midfielder. Again, I can't profess to know too much about him, but he is only 21. And he must come in with a pretty big pedigree if they've been willing to spend 7 million on such a young player from the Swedish league. So he could be one to watch out for. The only other player that they've signed for a fee is actually a backup goalkeeper, Jens Grahl from Stuttgart. Again, he didn't really play at all last season. So, I mean, not too much done really there. I think, as Rory said, Rafael Borre, he came in from River Plate. He is probably the one that's being tipped to replace Silva. But again, it's a big ask to come to Europe for the first time, from South America. He's 25, so he's a good age. But I think a lot of Frankfurt's success is going to depend on how well he hits the ground running, because obviously you're replacing almost 30 league goals last season that obviously he got, which is just massive, really. Moving on to 6th, I've gone for Bayer Leverkusen. I think obviously Leverkusen, they're always up there, aren't they? They very, very rarely slip below like 6th or 7th. Obviously last season they finished 6th, which was seen as a disappointing season for them. I don't see any reason to see why they can finish above there this year, to be honest, because they've got kind of a rookie manager, at least by Bundesliga standards, coming in from the Swiss league. I think it was Young Boys Bayern. Again, the Swiss league is quite substantially lower, but sometimes these kind of obscure managers do well in the Bundesliga. So we'll have to see what happens there with them. I think, there's a big chance he could lose Leon Bailey. It seems as though a few English clubs are queuing up for him at the minute. Obviously, he's been linked with Arsenal a number of times in the past, but it seems though he's more likely to go to Aston Villa or Everton as things stand. They have made a couple of signings. One that we've got to mention really is obviously the Kusenau from FC Brugge. They paid 23 million euros for him. That's kind of gone under the radar a little bit. So, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what he does. They also signed, actually, one that was kind of, I thought was a good deal is Mitchell Bakker from PSG. The fullback, they got him for 7 million. I think he was starting a lot of games last year for PSG. So, clearly he has some pedigree about him. I think he could be a good signing of fullback. But aside from that, not too much dealings other than that from them. Then finally, moving on to the 5th spot, I've actually gone for Wolfsburg. Obviously, a fantastic season for Wolfsburg last year, but I just think that the Champions League might take its toll on them. I think I've been really impressed with their signings, though, as well. I think they're signing really, really well, Wolfsburg. I think, obviously, Bornau from Köln, he was by far Cologne's best player last year. They've got a good deal there for a 22-year-old at 13.5 million euros, a really good deal. I think also Nemecha as well from Man City. I mean, obviously, Paul, our resident City fan, said that he is a good player. I don't know much about him but again, 22 years old, looks like a guy who could be really good. It's obviously probably being signed as backup for Weghorst, but I mean, there's a chance that he could start to play a bit more of a peripheral, a more important role as the season moves on. A couple of other signings as well, an 18-year-old Belgian called Franks from Mechelen in Belgium. And they also made Maximilian Phillips transfer permanent from Dynamo Moscow as well. So again, for me, that's really, really good business from them to add to an already very, very good squad as well. So, but I just think that Wolfsburg, the Champions League might be a little bit too much, so they might drop a place to 5th this year.
Good stuff. So that just leaves the top 4 to go. So I will go through mine first, and then we'll go through Mark. So just again, so like I did with Union, I'm bumping up Wolfsburg a place from Mark's table into 4th with mine. So yeah, I reckon Wolfsburg will replicate a similar season to last season, based on defensive stability and a very sound attacking structure. At the moment, as we're recording, Maxime Lacroix is still a Wolfsburg player, so I think a lot of that might change if Dortmund get him. That could be huge in terms of Wolfsburg's season. But yeah, I really like their business, actually. I think they've made some fantastic signings. As you say, Bornau from Cologne. I didn't actually realise that Elvis Rexbajai was a Wolfsburg player, so he's come back from his loan at Cologne. Yeah. He could be useful as well as a squad player. As you mentioned, Philip now a full-blown Wolfsburg player. I think that's really good business, and the 2 lads from City as well. They look like talented players. So for me, it's got to be 4th place. Obviously, they'll be stretched by the Champions League, but at the moment, I think only 3 players have gone out the door. So really, they are boosting, bolstering that squad. So 4th place in a really good season for me. So moving on to the higher echelons of the league. 3rd place, I'm going to go for RB Leipzig. Despite their major signing of Andre Silva, I think that is the one area they really did need to address. So fair play, they've gone out and done it. Obviously a big shame from a Frankfurt point of view, but Leipzig now should have that guaranteed goals kind of section ahead of all the talent that they've got in behind him. They should create plenty of chances for him, with the likes of Angelino swinging in crosses for the fantastically prolific Silva, especially on his head, will be a tasty sort of equation. I can imagine that could be the next Sousa and Kalajdzic kind of combination. And I think, other than that, they look like they've done solid business. Obviously, the loan deal for Angelino is now permanent. Brian Broby from Ajax has come in as an exciting young striker. Caden Clark, again, an exciting young American from their one of their sister clubs, New York Red Bull. So I like a lot of their signings. I think one of their marquee signings from last year, his name escapes me now. I think it was Salazar or something like that. I'm not quite sure if that's his full name, but anyway, he's looked come back in pre-season fit, and he could be a really good. He's an attacking midfielder. I probably have got the pronunciation wrong, but he looks like a really entertaining player who could add a lot and take the pressure off the likes of the captain Sabitzer and co. Shame that Justin Kluivert's deal never got made permanent, but it didn't quite work out for him. So ultimately, it'll be really close, I think. And Silva's goals could be the difference between 2nd and 1st, but I'm going to pop them in 3rd place for now. Into 2nd place, my runners-up for this season coming are going to be Borussia Dortmund. Despite the fact that Jadon Sancho's moved on, that kind of plethora of of goals and assists, obviously, has been taken out of their team, but they've made some very sound business very quickly afterwards, bringing in the Dutch winger, Malen, on a good amount of money. I think about 30 odd million euros, near enough. But they've got that sorted out today as we're recording. So he should fit in really well. Looked really impressive in the Euros to me. So he should slot in nicely to that Sancho's side gap. Haaland will stay at the club, I'm sure. I can't imagine him leaving. So with that very fact that they're guaranteed goals, so at least second place. Slightly worried about, again, still the defence. I don't think they've really addressed it that much for me. So unfortunately, that'll probably be the difference between, you know, first and second or third. Obviously, Kobel's a very safe pair of hands, so that is a good signing. I like that signing. That might be the difference between coming third and second for them. So that is my runners-up. And very quickly, of course, making it 10 in a row against Bayern Munich. For me, I can't see any reason why they won't win the league. I do expect the league to be quite unpredictable this season. Obviously, there's a big factor of the new coach, Julian Nagelsmann. How will he cope with the pressure? He's coming over with his star centre-back, Dayot Upamecano from RB Leipzig. So again, that's cherry-picking quality from the second-best team last year into that already well-established team. They're losing a lot of experience. Alaba, Boateng, Javi Martinez. You can't buy experience at the end of the day, but I think they've got enough quality, enough talent. As long as Lewandowski's still around, I can't see anyone else but Bayern Munich for now. But I'm hoping it'll be close and it'll be a nice, unpredictable season. But that's my best shot.
Yeah. Okay. So starting with my fourth place, I've actually gone for Gladbach. Might surprise a few people, obviously, after finishing 8th last season and completely missing out on European football. But I actually think that could be that's probably the main reason why I've actually tipped them to finish 4th, because they didn't get European football last year. I think, obviously, Adi Hütter going into Gladbach is absolutely massive. I'm a massive fan of him as a coach. I love the football that he plays, at least if it's anything like what Frankfurt was. Obviously, very attacking. They like to get the wide players involved. The fullbacks are very important in an Adi Hütter team, and they love a good goal scorer. And for me, they've got that line in the deep in Thuram and obviously Playa as well. I just think last season was just a bit of a disaster for them, let's be honest, wasn't it? I mean, obviously it just didn't work out for me. Apart from getting through the Champions League group, last season was just a mess for Gladbach, really. I just think they never got playing well, but for me, they've got a quality side there. The only real piece of business they've done was to make a little bit surprising, really, that the only business really that they've done is made Hannes Wolf, who's a good player, by the way, another Austrian. Austria are going to have a really, really good team in a few years, I think, when some of these players mature. Obviously, we saw them have a good Euros as well. I think he's going to be a good player in the long run, Hannes Wolf. Didn't play that much last season, but when he did, I thought he looked good. But yeah, I've just gone for them in 4th. No key players have left as of yet as well, which is very important. I think there's a really good line there for Gladbach, and I just think they should get top 4 this year for me. Moving on to 3rd, I've actually gone for Dortmund. Yeah, I've gone for Borussia Dortmund in 3rd. I just think, for me, they've not really addressed it. Obviously, they've signed Kobel, but to be honest, I was hoping for a little bit more as a goalkeeper, really. I mean, that's no disrespect to Kobel, because I think he is a good goalkeeper. But do you know what I mean, Rory? I just think, for me, they were so poor in net last year, and for me, it cost them many, many games, didn't it? They must have lost at least 10, 15 points from goalkeeping errors last year. And I just think I would have hoped for them to go for like a real top quality goalkeeper. And I think, that, again, that's no disrespect to Kobel. I think he had a decent season last year, but for me, he's not a world-class goalkeeper. Again, the defence, for me, Hummels is how he got in the team of the year in the Bundesliga last year. I really, really don't know. I mean, he must have a good lawyer telling him to pay him and paid the Bundesliga to do that, because for me, he wasn't that great last season, Hummels. He looks a player that's very much in the twilight of his career. But I think, obviously, again, on top of that, obviously the loss of Sancho is needless to say, really. I think there will be more business, though, I think, from Dortmund as well. I do think there will be more. I think they will sign one of probably Lacroix or Saint-Just. That seems to be very much so. I think Marlon is made to play in the Bundesliga. I think he's going to be a good player, but whether he can quite reach the Sancho level in 1 year remains to be seen. But I do think he's a good signing, a good replacement. And obviously, Haaland is going to stay by the look of it now. And it very, very much depends. If he doesn't stay, then they're going to probably struggle to get top four potentially, because there are weaknesses still in that side. But with Haaland, anything is possible. Probably one of the best players in the league. So moving on to second, I've actually gone for RB Leipzig. Yeah. Obviously, last year's second as well. I really have a lot of hope for this Leipzig side, mostly because I think they've signed really, really well, actually, this year, Leipzig. I think, obviously, despite, we've got to mention the fact they have lost Upamecano and Konate, and it is very, very surprising, to say the least, that they haven't signed a high-profile central defender to replace them either, which really, I mean, they've signed so many players this year, and they've spent a lot of money, but no central defenders. So makes you think that they want to kind of rebrand themselves for being, we would say, a relatively defensive side last year. Let's be honest, they had the best defense in the league, but their attack was not exactly scintillating, to say the least. But they have signed, obviously, Andre Silva, who, for me, is the signing of the year. I mean, his market worth is actually 45 million, and they picked him up for 23 million. I think that says a lot, really. Do you know what I mean? I mean, the guy is, for me, he should be like, he's a world-class player for me, Andre Silva. I will say it. I really, really rate him. He's got everything you need in the centre forward. He's going to score goals next year big time for me. I'm almost 100% sure of that. I think Gvardiol as well, a 19-year-old fullback from Dinamo Zagreb. He looked quite good in the Euros for Croatia as well. Another interesting signing there, youngster. Angelino's permanent signing, massive signing, only for 18 million. I think that's a bargain as well, to be honest with you. I don't know why City didn't want to hang on to him, in truth. I think, obviously, yeah, also Benjamin Heinrichs as well, after a failed spell at Monaco. He's another player that could provide quality in defensive midfield. He was highly rated a couple of years ago before, obviously, his failed spell at Monaco, but maybe coming back to Germany, he's going to kind of regain his form. So, yeah, enough to believe for a good season for Leipzig. Yeah, I think, obviously, Bayern again as champions. I mean, it's very, very hard to look beyond them, isn't it? I mean, they are starting to have the look of an aging side in some ways, I've got to say. I mean, Neuer now is getting well into his 30s, and there are talks of him being a little bit past it now. He didn't have the best Euros, did he? I think last season he was good, but not as good as what some people were saying, for me, to be honest with you. I think he still made a few errors, and sometimes he can be a little bit rash nowadays with his sweeper goalkeeping at times. I think, obviously, yeah, Upamecano is a very, very good signing, a world-class signing, and they needed that in the defence because the defence wasn't great last year, but they've just got too many leaders. That's the thing with Bayern. I mean, obviously, Lewandowski, the best number 9 in the world. He's going to get another bag of goals, isn't he? No question about that. I think, again, Goretzka, who I'm a massive fan of. I was very, very shocked to see him not starting in some games in the Euros. For me, he's a world-class player. Very, very good player. Kimmich, another world-class player. They've just got too much quality and experience in there to believe that they won't win it. And also, it's the bottle as well, isn't it? For me, it was the bottle that got them to win the title last year, because last year probably wasn't the best team they've ever had. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, they had problems behind the scenes as well with Hansi Flick. But obviously, they did win it in the end just because they won those big games, didn't they? They came back from 2 down to beat Dortmund, last-minute goals against a lot of big teams, and I just think they always have that in them, Bayern Munich, don't they? And as a result, I'm going to go for them to be the 2021-22 Bundesliga champions.
Good stuff. Well, that brings us to an end. What's probably been a longer show than we probably both anticipated. We're obviously both very excited about the season starting because we can't help ourselves talking about all the business and what we think is going to happen. But yeah, that brings a close to the prediction show of 2021-22. As we said, by all means, get involved. Let us know what you think of our predictions. Trash. Give us some trash talk if we think we've gone massively wrong. Put in your predictions in the comments on the channel. Make sure you click subscribe as well to the channel. We're going to have an even bigger season this season on the channel. We've got all sorts planned, as you will see in the coming weeks. But yeah, over to you, Mark. Do you want to close up as per?
Yeah, so obviously it's been a great show, and obviously I just want to remind you guys, if you want to see any more of what Over the Bar do, follow our Twitter at Over the Bar FB. We're very active on Twitter, and we like to share like everything we produce on there. Obviously, we will also have League One and League Two shows this year as well. So I know a lot of you guys follow that closely, so it's good to have some cross-show debates as well. And also remember to check out our main site, which is otbfootball.net, which is like the centerpiece of our stuff. Check that out as well, because we spend a lot of time making sure that website is nice and up to date and everything. Yeah. And obviously check out our YouTube as well, which obviously if you're watching that, then you should be subscribed already. And share it with your friends. Let everyone know about what we're doing here, because we want to create as big a community as possible. So thanks for joining us for the show again. And it's going to be a great season, and let's see how our predictions turn out. See you next time.
Cheers all.